If IT's ready to go, we're ready to go.
Yep.
Yep.
I'd like to call the meeting of the Santa Fe County Planning Commission for May 16th to order. Can we have a roll call, Karen? Here.
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 Thank you. Can we stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you. The next item is the introduction of new planning commission member.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. You have a new member. His name is Ruben Mendoza. He will be representing District 5 as a planning commission and will be here at the next planning meeting.
Thank you. The approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes?
Yes, sir, we do. We're asking to move item A under consent down to new business because it was not a unanimous vote on that case. That way, anybody who voted negative of that case, no on that case, will have the right to vote no on the final order. And then item A under new business, as they withdrew as of about noon today, so they will not be heard today.
Case A, a new business, yes.
Case A number 24-5000 withdrew.
That was, okay.
No, the final order, we're just pulling case number 23-5200 off of consent because it was not a unanimous decision on that case. So that way, when y'all are voting on a final order, anybody who voted no on the case has the right to vote no on a final order. Being on consent without being unanimous, it would, if unanimously done was the consent agenda, then they voted yes for the final order.
Mr. Chair, I think you said 5200, okay.
23-5200 final order. Item A under consent will be moved to item A under new business.
Got it.
Yes. Can we have an approval, a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I move to approve the agenda amended to put the item A in consent in place of item A in new business, which is removed.
I'll second.
Good. Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Did Carl vote?
Property is in,
Did you vote, Carl?
oh, okay.
Did you vote to approve the amended agenda?
Yes, okay.
Okay, that was the one in El Dorado, that first one.
Yes.
All right, now I got
The
it.
next item we have is approval of the minutes of April 18, 2024. Can I have a motion? Any changes to the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I noticed a needed correction in the minutes. On page 23, Wayne, there's a garbled sentence which should read, "I don't recall us ever stating," at the beginning of it. You can find it because it's led with 3 question marks.
Now, approval of the minutes with the corrections that Mr. Abo did. Can we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Can we have a second?
I'll second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 It's unanimous. The consent agenda without case 23-520. Can we approve all the cases at the same time?
Yes, sir.
Can we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second I'll second to approve.
Thank you. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
They're approved. The next case under new business, is case number 235200, Todd and Susan Handy variance.
Yes, sir. This is the final order. Like I stated previously, we pulled it off of consent agenda because it was not a unanimous vote to approve it. So this will give any of the commissioners who voted no at the original hearing a chance to vote no on a final order.
Okay, we cannot discuss any of the details of the hearing.
No, sir. You can discuss if you want changes in final order, but they will need to match the minutes from that hearing, and so there's really not a lot of changes we can do.
Okay. What are the wishes of the commission? Do we have any discussion, or do we go for a vote?
I'll move to approve this case, 235200, on a voice vote.
Okay,
I'll second.
thank you. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Do we get 5 votes? Mr. Pava,
Aye.
is this unanimous? Did I hear that? Any nays? What did you hear, Jordan? Any nays?
I didn't hear any nays.
Okay, so that case is approved. We go on to the next case is case number 24-5030, Perry and Sharon Tongate, applicants.
Chairman?
Yes.
There was an amendment to the final report, I'm sorry, the report that y'all have. It's very minor, it's more grammatical than anything else, but we are passing out the new copy of the report for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I ask staff to describe the differences unless they're in track changes? Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner, they're mostly grammar errors. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commission. Destiny Romero, Building and Development Review Specialist. Perry and Sharon Tongate applicants, through their agent, Santa Fe Permits LLC, request a variance of SLDC Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.4 Utilities to allow an unpermitted accessory dwelling unit to be on its own liquid waste disposal system. The unpermitted ADU is currently served by a septic tank and a leach field independent of the principal residence, while the principal residence has 2 septic tanks that share 1 leach field. All liquid waste disposal systems were permitted with the New Mexico Environment Department and were issued the following permits. Permit number 019770, which is assigned to the ADU, and permit number 019887, which is assigned to the primary residence. The property is located at 29 Leaping Powder Road within the residential fringe zoning district, which has a density of 1 dwelling per 5 acres and is within Section 13, Township 16N, Range 9 East. The applicants met with staff to submit a short-term rental application when it was discovered that the ADU on-site was not permitted by Santa Fe County. Mr. and Mrs. Tongate bought the property in 2020 with the existing principal and unpermitted accessory dwelling unit already in place. As part of the purchase transaction, the seller was required to update the septic systems. These updated systems were permitted and approved by the New Mexico Environment Department. The approved permits were submitted to Santa Fe County staff as part of the variance submittal package. The applicants are requesting a variance of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.4, Utilities to allow an ADU to be on its own liquid waste disposal system. The applicant is in compliance with the water and electricity for the accessory dwelling unit as part of Chapter 10, Section 10.4.2.4 requirements. The applicants state that they purchased the property with the multiple septic systems and are requesting the variance to come into compliance with the SLDC. The applicants have worked with NMED to retrieve the permits for the septic systems. The applicants state that the seller arranged septic improvements with Allied Septic Service as part of the agreement between the seller and applicants to bring the septic system into compliance. NMED approved and permitted these systems as there was a cesspool and 2 septic systems on the property. The cesspool was abandoned and filled with soil, and a new small septic system, permit number 019887, was installed to replace it. The applicants were issued a temporary short-term rental license on March 19th, 2024, and it will expire on September 18th, 2024. The applicants have addressed the variance criteria, and staff has responded to the applicants' comments as contained in the memo. On April 11th, 2024, this request was presented to the Sustainable Land Development Hearing Officer. The hearing officer memorialized findings of fact and conclusions of law in a recommended order on this request. The hearing officer, based on the evidence presented, recommended approval of the applicant's variance be granted. The written order and the minutes of the April 11th, 2024 hearing are attached as Exhibits 10 and 11. Building and Development Services staff has reviewed this request for compliance with pertinent SLDC requirements and has found that the facts presented do not support the request for a variance. Staff recommends denial of the request for a variance to allow the unpermitted accessory dwelling unit to be on its own septic system. If the Planning Commission finds the variance criteria has been met and recommends approval of the variance, staff recommends the following conditions be imposed. Mr. Chair and Commission, may I enter the conditions into the record?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. I stand for any questions.
Any questions of staff?
I have a question. If the variance wasn't approved, what would be their solution? Would it be to hook up the other unit to the main septic systems?
Mr. Chair, Commission, yes, that is correct. They would have to connect to one system.
Okay, to one system.
Yes, ma'am.
Carl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the conditions, it says with the number 1 that if this variance is approved, but they have to apply for the after-the-fact permit. It says with the understanding that approval is not assured. So what would be reasons that maybe it wasn't issued a permit, an after-the-fact permit?
Chair, Commissioners, they haven't applied for it yet because they need the variance for the separate septic tank in order to apply for the after-fact permit, because septic is one of the application requirements when they submit.
So, Mr. Chairman, and is that the only requirement that would be needed to be met in order to condition so that they did qualify for an after-the-fact permit?
Yes, sir, I believe so, that they do qualify for everything else. All the other utilities are correct and meet the SLDC.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, as far as the well location, is it shown on the survey plat at all, or on any of the?
Yes, sir. It is shown in the proposal, which is Exhibit 2 in the site plan.
Any other questions of staff?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to understand the thinking behind this requirement that the septic system be on the same lot as or be the same instead of, what is the difference for not wanting separate septic systems? You know, when I read that section, it says, the purpose of this section is to make sure the appearance that it looks subordinate. But I'm just trying to understand, with an underground utility, what is the intended reason for this requirement?
Chair, Commissioners, I don't have a great answer for you. I can tell you that this particular section is being reevaluated right now as a change to the SLDC coming up before y'all and BCC, because staff has asked the same question, and it was just the way the original SLDC was written.
Thank you, and I would hope you could encourage in your conversations that it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, because there are topographic differences and reasons that it makes it really hard for folks. Thank you.
So Mr. Chairman, and just conversation is, I know that the environmental department will make sure that a well is more than 100 feet, and so I think, because they're worried about nitrate contamination into the well. So when they do something like this, even though I know that they require a minimum of 3/4 acre lot, and this is a much larger lot, but I think it's just so that they minimize the amount of septic systems relevant to any well around the
Adjacent,
area.
yeah.
Yes. I believe that's part of the major reason.
Any other questions? If not, I've got a couple of questions. How big is this lot that the house and the additional dwelling unit is on? Did I see 7 acres or something?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
And the zoning for this area is 1 house per 5 acres?
1 dwelling per 5 acres, yes, sir.
And do you have any idea when the additional dwelling unit was built?
Mr. Chair, I do not, but the agent is here. If she may be able to answer that question.
You know, the thing is that what I'm concerned about is somebody built an additional dwelling unit, did not get a permit from the county, and if it was a contractor, they would have had to get a permit from the state or something, you know.
Mr. Chair, they did get a permit with our office to create that into a garage at first, and then from the garage, that's when they converted it into an ADU,
That's what it was, a conversion?
a conversion.
Well, those are the questions I have, and thank you very much. Any other questions of staff? If not, is the applicant here? Please step forward and get sworn in.
Sorry, thanks. As staff mentioned, the structure was unpermitted prior to the purchase. Perry and Sharon purchased this house and did not know that the accessory dwelling was not permitted. They also found that there were 2 existing septic systems and a cesspool. So in order to become compliant, they upgraded those 2 systems and replaced the cesspool because that was a danger. And so the only way to do that was they had to abandon the cesspool or the old system. And the reason for allowing that system is the distance and issues in connecting the accessory dwelling to either of the other systems. So trying to connect the accessory dwelling would require a lengthy line and pump station. So NMED tries to approve systems that bring the property into compliance with the regulations without creating overly complex and difficult for owners to maintain. So in this situation, the plans and permitting met those goals, but was unable to comply with the county's goal of limiting the number of systems. And the county, there is no limit to the systems you can have with your residents, but for some reason, you cannot have one with an accessory dwelling. And staff did, is my understanding, went out to measure the distance between the well and the septic systems, and it is over 100 feet. And that's all I have, but I stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions of the applicant?
So I do. Thank
Carl?
you for presenting. So just to be clear, there's 2 septic systems or 3 septic systems on the property?
There are 3. There were 2 existing and a cesspool, so the cesspool was replaced with the new one.
On the site plan, I see there's 3 listed, so is the cesspool one of the 3? Is that
Yes, it's no longer a cesspool, but it is one of the 3, correct.
okay, but do you know which one it is here?
Yes, I can show. It is, I have actually copies of the site plan. It is
Chairman and commission members, it is the one identified to the
Yes.
west of the house.
Yes.
I'm looking for northwest, south.
Just to the left of the existing shed.
And so, Mr. Chairman, I forget, what's your name?
Oh, Jennifer.
Jennifer. So sounds like this house was built, or this accessory structure was built prior to the owners buying the property, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and then when they bought the property, they wanted to make, did it have a septic system on it already, or didn't?
Well, it did, but they were dated, and so they made an agreement with the seller to make arrangements to get those fixed. And the buyer actually found the cesspool under the residence and discovered it. And at that point, they knew that time was of the essence, and so they needed to get that mediated. So then they got the Allied Septic to come in, since they were making the other ones compliant, to get that taken care of.
So then, if I understand correctly, during the sale of the home, one of the conditions put on the seller was to update or give money to update the septic system on the structure that was built prior to these owners that bought this new property.
That is correct.
Okay, so at that point, they actually just need to go to NMED to apply for a septic tank permit. They don't actually need the county in that regard. So they were trying to do the right thing and going through the right department and to get it permitted, then it appears to me.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, and then the second septic system, as I see here, Mr. Chairman, the first one I was a little concerned about because it looked like close to 100 feet, but the other one clearly looks to the east that it's much more than 100 feet. And so I don't think they have to really worry about nitrates through the natural percolation of cleaning of the water. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, yes, Mr. Pava.
I'm going to use a laser pointer next time. Ms. Solomon, thank you, Mr. Chair. The ADU, aside from this issue, could the ADU be compliant? This might have been an issue. I should have asked staff this, actually. I'm sorry. But if you'd like to respond.
Mr. Chair, Commission, besides from the septic, the ADU is in compliance with our SLDC.
And follow-up question, so the ADU is at like 1,140 square feet, something like that. And an ADU could be up to 50% of the square footage of the main dwelling, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Yeah, so when I just eyeball this when I was reading the plans, that it actually falls underneath 50% or less than the square footage of the main house?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? If not, I've got a couple of questions. You know, we've had similar cases like this in the past. Has the realtor and the sellers been contacted?
Yes, and he even engaged the title company as well, and unfortunately, it became a, blame game and back and forth, and but they knew that they needed to get this fixed, so eventually, after trying to go through those channels and not having any resolve, they moved forward with the septic and getting it compliant.
The other question I had, the additional dwelling unit, what's the condition of that unit? How old is it? When was it built?
I believe it was in the 90s. I know the home was built in the 60s, and I think later on that came about, but the new owners were not aware that it was unpermitted until they went in for a short-term rental permit.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Any more questions, Carl?
So Mr. Chairman, I don't really have a question other than, we're going to see these cases over and over as the Sustainable Land Development Code was developed in 2017, and people made purchases prior to that and where they were maybe compliant at that time, and then all of a sudden now they're not compliant. And I think this has to probably do, as I see one of the conditions was a rental, so probably they had to come get a rental license and then got dinged on it. And so, I think that as time goes on, we'll see less and less of this just because any new additions will be more compliant. It's some of our growing pains,
Any other questions of the applicant? If not, this is a public hearing. Any members of the public want to comment on this case, either for or against? Anybody online, Jordan?
Chairman, there's nobody appearing to want to speak online.
Okay, if,
And Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one last comment of
Yes.
the applicant? Jennifer, so it says compliant with the fire marshal, so have you gotten a report from the fire marshal as far as there need to be a hammerhead, or is they already compliant with that?
I know we touched on that. I have not received an official report, but I'm, in the TAC response letter does address that.
Okay, so then all these conditions that were placed on, if it is approved, then it sounds like they're all reasonable, to me, it looks like.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
thank you. If we have no comments from the public, I guess we will close the public hearing. And what are the wishes of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval of this variance case 24-5030 with the conditions that are recommended here by staff. So the motion to approve the variance.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Do we have discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Eric, Jeremy?
No.
You know, I had a question for Jordan on this matter. When they apply for a short-term rental license, what does the county do when they go inspect? Is that what triggered this situation for the owners?
We go out there and we look to make sure it's safe. There's not a lot we can do because it is short-term rental, so it's considered residential still under the fire code. That is something we're looking at possibly for an update is if these are going to be open to the public, should we making them at least follow ADA compliancy issues? But code enforcement goes out there and looking to make sure it appears to be safe. You know, smoke alarms, fire alarms, stuff like that.
And that inspection was performed on this dwelling?
It has not because they have not applied for their STR. So they will need, if they get the variance from y'all today, they will apply for their after-the-fact permit. When they're issued their after-the-fact permit and pay for that, they can now apply for their STR license.
Yeah, on the after-the-fact permit, what is required by the county for that? Although that is not the issue today, but any idea, enlighten me on that.
Chairman, commission members, so when the applicants came in for the short-term rental, staff takes a review of all documents, and they also look for permitting of all structures. They found that there was no permit for the accessory dwelling unit. They did find permits, or due to the plat, did identify the single-family residence and the garage, but did not see any addition to the garage permitted for the accessory dwelling unit. So that's when staff rejected their short-term rental application. When they do come in for a after-the-fact permit for an accessory dwelling unit, staff does require the normal documentation that's required for an accessory dwelling unit: proof of water, proof of septic, address verification, application to the county and to the state, as well as legal audit record. And then as far as plans go, we limit them to just the site plan, a floor plan, and an elevations. We do not require them to go back and reverse engineer this and get framing plans or foundation plans or anything like that.
That's a very good explanation, Dominic. I agree with that.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second.
So, Mr.
What are the-
Chairman, can I comment
Yes,
on that?
yes.
The danger in all of this is that when they go back for the after-the-fact permit is that they're not required and the state won't touch it, construction industries won't touch it, so the inspections that were required at the beginning for electrical and plumbing and all that were never on the house. I don't believe so.
Mr. Chair, I went through the unfortunate process of building a shed without a permit, without a development permit, and so requested an after-the-fact permit that was granted. I actually did go to regulation licensing to see if a permit was needed. They said, because this is not an occupancy, you don't have to give us those plans and things. But I believe that since it is a dwelling unit, they may need to have to get a, they don't?
They don't.
Okay.
They don't, because they don't
Thanks.
want to, they can't
They-
certify something they didn't see.
They can't see inside the walls. Got it. Thanks.
So just to touch on that, we have been in contact with the state, and on structures such as this, again, we don't require a framing plan, foundation plan, or details or anything like that. But the state has indicated to us, and we're letting the applicants know that if they do go on to get an actual building permit with the state, they will be required to get architectural stamps or engineer stamps on those type of drawings in order to get an actual building permit, because they will not go in and do any invasive inspections.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. We will call for a vote. Those in favor of approval of case number 24-5030 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have those not in favor? We have a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Now we have petitions from the floor. Any petitions? I see none. Communications from commission members. Any communications? I believe so. Are we done?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to understand from staff what they think the coming meetings will have. They're going to be doing some traveling and want to make sure don't miss anything fun.
We are seeing an uptick. I hate to break it to y'all, but AES is probably going to be here late June, early July. I am in talks with Leandro. We're looking at possibly doing that as a special meeting, just because of the fact it is going to be a long meeting and we don't want to tie other cases up with it. So we're going to look at holding a special meeting for that. But I would sit there and say probably July, August at the latest, we're going to see AES back up. And then we possibly have a DCI coming our way, which will probably be in the fall.
Thank you. Do we have communications from the county attorney? Roger?
No communications this evening, Mr. Commissioner, thank you.
Thank you. Communications from land use staff? Dominic?
No, sir?
Okay. Next regularly scheduled planning commission meeting is June 20th, 2024. Can we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. We're adjourned.